Ladies and gentlemen, hello. We're sitting down here with Ryan Barnes of Atarim. Thank you so much for sitting down with me here at CloudFest USA. Appreciate it. So we actually, fun story just for you, we actually just met. Just like you do, if you come to networking events like this, which you should come to CloudFest USA next year. If you come to these types of events, you're going to meet a bunch of different people from companies that you may know, may have heard of, may have never heard of. And in this case particularly, I haven't met Ryan, so it's a pleasure. But I have heard of Atarim, and maybe you have as well. We want to dive into it a little bit more here because I got some cool things going on that I may have heard of. And again, maybe you have heard of some of the stuff, but Ryan is what is your title?
I'm the marketing lead.
Marketing lead. So he knows everything at Atarim, okay? And it's his job to kind of get you to understand it and explain it and everything like that. So we're going to dive into a little bit of that. I want to start really simple, though, with this, Ryan. What is the main core problem that Atarim seeks to solve with everything that it does with its product, and kind of what is it at the top?
Yeah, sure. So we are a visual collaboration platform. And historically, the problem that we've always seek to solve is feedback. Now, feedback isn't a problem. It's essential. But it can be really tricky, especially when you're designing and shipping websites. If you and I are working together on a PowerPoint or a presentation, that's dead easy. We can do that together collaboratively in Google Slides or something. If we're working on, I don't know, a speech or a document or something, we've got Google Docs and that's collaborative. That's really easy. You can add comments very easily. But one thing agencies were telling us, and we were finding, with lots of people in that creative space, was giving feedback on websites is really tricky. Sometimes clients just want 30 different email threads, or they'll want to put screenshots in a Word document, and then you go through it that way, and it's a pain. And it's not just painful, it's expensive as well. Most of the time in actually shipping a website is when you've finished the initial project and you're doing that feedback, and clients are saying things like, make the logo bigger, can you just make it pop? And that's really tricky. So we're a software platform that makes that feedback and collaboration way easier. Or at least that was what we used to do. We've still got that DNA, and that's a big part of who we are. But we've recently launched the Inner Circle, which is the world's first kind of agentic AI creative team. So you no longer need to wait for kind of other senior creatives on your team to give feedback for copy or design or things like that. We've got these AI agents who are experts in their field to help review, strategize, and collaborate with you on a project. So you go from meh to, wow, that's really good on that kind of first pass, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
People were coming to us saying, we want to ship better work faster, and feedback is a real challenge to that. So that's what we've lasered in on with the product.
Gotcha. So at the core of it, like you said, it was and again, I have agency experience, so I've used Atarim and I've seen it in the past. And I think when I first saw it, I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. It was probably, do you know when Atarim was founded?
Yeah, so probably about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. Okay. We were WP Feedback a long time ago.
Okay.
And then we were less just exclusively about WordPress, and we've moved over towards it. So yeah, probably about 6 or 7 years.
I definitely explored it very early on. And then obviously, like we discussed off camera, like we have mutual connections, Vito.
Yeah.
And
happy birthday, Vito.
Happy birthday, Vito. So like, definitely there's some common threads there. I think I obviously want to hit on for anybody that's watching, if you're an agency owner or even if you're like a freelancer, when a lot of times we hear this term like agency owner, and it could mean so many different things. It could be at so many different levels. You still need organization and client feedback, and like just a better, I always like to use the example of like sometimes in the past, I'm guilty of this. You get a lead, right? And it's like a friend or something, and you're doing it via, like you're managing that relationship via like text message or like Facebook message or something like that. And you're saying, hey, we want to change this, make the logo bigger and whatever, like just via just an SMS or something. It's not a good way to run a business. It's not a good way to run a project and have that client relationship. So Atarim definitely solves that problem by putting that all in one place. Now, let's talk about just a little bit of some of the basic features, and then I do want to dive into the new stuff that I've heard about, but I want to hear more about.
Sure.
At the core level, Atarim is something where you can kind of load in a site that you're working on, and then you're able to give your client, again, like some sort of access, login, et cetera, on that end. And then they're able to click around to different elements. So you could send them a link, be like, hey, we made some changes, or this is the staging site or whatever. And then you're like, they can click around and they could physically add in, like, hey, they could click the logo and say, hey, make this bigger. They could click a headline and change this to this. So that's as simple as I could put it. Is there a little bit more on like the baseline?
Yeah. I mean, I think you essentially nailed it, right? And one of the things we're really focused on is making it easier for that relationship when it's remote. You know, if I was running an agency, I was a creative professional, and you could come to my studio and you could point at the MacBook and go, let's fix that. That's quite straightforward. What's tricky in that scenario is capturing that feedback in your words, understanding it in a language that my, developers and my designers can understand, putting it in Jira, prioritizing it. That's where it gets really tricky. So we've kind of taken that whiteboard kind of model. And that's kind of the platform that I think you really eloquently describes there. But it's not just comment threads, right? So it can automatically go into your Jira or, Monday.com and things like that. So when people are putting in feedback, it's not another job to then organize it all and sync and allocate to people and stuff like that. It's kind of built in through integrations with the platform. So you can literally just give a client a link. They don't need to create an account. If you're a plumber in Pennsylvania, your business isn't websites. You're not necessarily used to using content management tools and doing all that kind of stuff. So we've made it really easy for the clients to just click and comment. But that doesn't mean it's unsophisticated. For the people actually shipping and building, we've got this kind of sophisticated system with integrations and things to make that system of doing the work and shipping the thing that the client wants way easier.
That's actually a really interesting point, because I think when I tried Atarim, it might have been before it might have been planned, but it might have been before that, because I'm thinking about this back in my mind when I tried this for my agency at the time. And I thought the same thing. It's like, this is really cool. But I thought two things. One, now this is another system that I have to manage some of these things in, which it sounds like it could be kind of a conduit to, like, again, a ClickUp or Monday.com, et cetera, whatever you're using. So that's awesome, because if you're already using a proper, or like a project management software somewhere else that you've just been using for whatever reason, then now it could pipe into there. So that's fantastic. The other question, this is a hard one. Like, I'm sure you get this a lot from probably the most common objection from agency owners. What is your response or any sort of tips for if an agency says, I don't think my clients are going to use this, they won't take the time to actually, even if I send them a link, they're not going to go in there and click around and provide me feedback. They want to be lazy, or they want to be whatever. Have you, I'm sure you guys have gotten this before. How have you kind of helped agency owners with that?
Yeah. So we see it partly as an Atarim problem, but also as an agency problem, right? I mean, that relationship has a financial value to you when you're shipping something for clients, and their, difficulty in giving feedback or their vagueness has a literal financial cost to you. So what we're trying to do with Atarim is empower you to actually take charge of that relationship. My clients won't want to use it or stuff like that. That's not really feedback we tend to get. A lot of the time it is quite positive, and people are going, my clients are actually giving way more specific feedback that they didn't know how to put into words. They might not know a modal is called a modal, or when they talk about the big picture, they don't necessarily know it's a hero. We get that clarity. But one of the things we really try and push to people is say, look, we're giving you the tools to squish that feedback cycle. This is something you should invest in, right? Because if your client's finding it a little bit difficult or something, it's easy to train them. It's easy to show them how to do that. It is a visual system, but actually it pays dividends, right? That is work worth doing. A lot of the times in business, it's the bits that are a bit slow or a bit hard. They're the problems that are usually worth fixing. And we're saying, look, okay, your client might immediately balk or say, I don't want to click on something. I just want to send you emails over iMessage or something. Okay, fine. But imagine how much better the feedback could be if you manage to get them using a system like this. And that's what the people who are using Atarim tend to do, right? Because you're getting that better feedback. So it might feel like it's an initial obstruction at the beginning, but if you don't tackle that then, you're just going to have it at the end of the project anyway. So we're really trying to make it so you actually understand what the client really wants, because if you just let them kind of, I'll take a look at it, I'll send you my thoughts, they might never get around to doing that. This feedback thing is so critical that we're kind of saying, look, this is something you should invest in. A little bit of time will make for way better kind of output. Because it is important. I said earlier, feedback isn't a problem. It's a really critical part of building products people love. So by, encouraging them to really take that seriously and saying, hey, this is an opportunity. This isn't just a job. This isn't just something you've got to do. This is an opportunity for you as the client to get something, goes from good to excellent. We really think you should invest a little bit of time in this. It's easier than you think. That's a really positive message that I think clients tend to respond to really well.
That makes a lot of sense. And I do agree with you. It's more of an agency kind of like relationship issue.
But it's
obviously.
hard because you're stretched with time. And these relationships, you want to keep the client happy. You want to consume their problems. So it is hard, but you get in the habit of it early on and it makes a big impact.
So the other angle to that, or maybe like the second layer to that objection is, okay, well, all right, I'll use Atarim as an agency. I'm playing the agency here. I'll use Atarim. I'll get my clients to use it. Okay, well, what if now, because there's this idea of like, you're the web designer, developer, et cetera. You're the market, you're even almost like the marketing consultant in a way when you're in that position. So you're dealing with a small business and you're like, they don't know what they want. Like, if they want to change a headline or something, they're not really qualified. Like, it's their business. But a lot of times, I deal with clients every day. It's like they know what their business does in a sense because they can run it, but they don't know enough to market it. That's why they're hiring you.
Yeah.
So I think maybe I'm hypothesizing here, but like that's maybe a little bit of what you guys saw as well, because now you have the inner circle.
Yeah.
And the inner circle is, I'll let you explain it fully, but as I understand it, it is a team of like AI agents for trained on different specialities, like kind of like a copywriting, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
And they help, I'm not sure if they help necessarily agency owner per se, or they help the person giving the feedback to even make it better. Like maybe they see some text, like they see a headline and they're like, I'm not really sure that I love that, but I don't have something better. And they're able to call on, I don't know all the names, you're gonna have to help me, but like, you can call on like the copywriting agent and then, member of the inner circle team, and then they're able to kind of help with that. So just kind of, I feel like that makes sense in my mind. I'm not exactly sure if that's how the whole concept was conceived, but
broadly, I mean, one of the things, and this is a metaphor I use quite a lot, is, we're trying to help people ship better work faster. Mm-hmm. That is what will take you further as an agency. That will help you grow. That's what protects your margins. Better work faster, and that's a difficult thing to achieve. And one of the ways you can do better work faster is by squishing that feedback cycle, and just making sure that you're getting the feedback and you're actioning it more quickly. But one of the things we found, and agency owners are a good example, but creative professionals is kind of the language we're using more often, because you can also upload Figma designs to Atarim and that works, or even just graphics and PDFs. We can investigate that for you. What the inner circle does is acts like a senior creative team, but they're agentic and they're AI. So exactly like you're saying, when somebody loads a project into Atarim, what the inner circle do on the first instance is much like a real team go, okay, let's take a step back. What is it we're really trying to achieve here? And that's your job as an agency owner. Someone goes, I want to do a new website. Okay, you're an ice cream museum. What's the purpose of your website? Is it to tell people that they should come and visit? Is it to get schools to buy a day where they can take kids and do an educational program like that? You've really got to understand the purpose of it. And that's where our AI come in and help you. So that's work you'll be doing with your colleagues. But actually, with the inner circle, we've kind of reduced the blocker. You don't need to do it with other people now. You can keep your designers and your developers working on other projects. You can bring them in where they need to have that impact. So the inner circle will do this kind of strategic review and understands the goal of the website, what you're trying to achieve. And then they can kind of laser in on the things that they might want to do. So let's say, for example, we use that ice cream museum's website and we can be like, I want to make this faster, but I also want to make it more exciting. That's a realistic brief that, you might give to somebody who's involved in fixing our website, working on it. Well, you can give that brief to the inner circle and they'll go, okay, well, let's look at what we're working with here. What are the brand assets? What's the way it communicates? Who's it for? What do we need to take into account? And then each of those agents, which are Claro, Index, Lexi, Glitch, Pixel, and I knew I'd forget one. Claro, Index, Lexi, Pixel, Glitch, and Navi, who's the accessibility one. There we go. There's the 6. They'll start investigating that from their kind of individual experience and like insight, right? So Lexi, the copywriter, will explore to make sure everything's clear and impactful and on brand in terms of your messaging. So you then don't need to go, right, I've just been wearing my design hat for 4 hours. Now I need to critically review all the copy that I've already written. One of the things I find as a marketer is getting that outside perspective can be really tricky. And the inner circle can not only provide that outside perspective, but where you're not a specialist and you need that expert input, that's what the inner circle are there for as well. They're not just a QA tool. They're not just a chatbot. They are AI agents that kind of have that strategic level input. So they can surface the problems that you don't know to look out for and then help you address them, whether that's to do with like design or UX or conversion or accessibility. Each of these agents kind of review the website through the lens you've given them and the tasks and the goals you've set them to then say, actually, you know what? this website is affecting your first content, or this element is affecting your first contentful paint, you need to minify it, put it into, .avi or a different kind of format. You can also talk to the AI and say, I don't know how to do that. I've got these plugins installed. Can that help me with it? And they can give this kind of realistic input and reply to you and educate you on how to do that. So, we call it the world's first kind of AI creative team. And that's because you can treat them like real AI kind of real colleagues. You can collaborate with them and develop better products and projects by working with them. And that really helps you do what I was saying earlier about shipping better work faster. One of the things Vito was talking about in his talk that he delivered earlier was any good project is the result of iteration. You do your first draft, it's okay. And then you refine the bits that suck, and then you get something pretty good. And then maybe you get some feedback, and then it's great. And then you share it with a colleague, and they fix the things that you didn't see, and then it goes to excellent. What the inner circle is there to do is help you do that. But without relying on creatives you might not have in your team or experience that you might not have. These AI agents trained on thousands of creative projects know what to look out for and can give you that insight. So you go from having something that's meh to excellent just by yourself. Mm-hmm. But also, as you're talking about with the integrations, they can set tasks that you can easily give to a developer or somebody else on your team, or outsource and take care of it. They're that kind of strategic partner that you can build and collaborate with, I suppose.
Yep. It sounds pretty great. I'm not sure why anybody wouldn't utilize that, because again, as creative professionals, agency owner, et cetera, like you, especially if you're a smaller team, like you need that. And, I think we were talking about in a different, off camera in a different interview, like we were talking about how AI is arising, and there's so many, it's like AI wave, but at the same time, there's a lot of generalized usage of AI, which is good, like in, for a lot of things, but this is taking it to a whole nother level, and it's specific to not only the industry, but even like the specifics of the industry, like the pillars, like copywriting
or copy. Yeah,
exactly.
And just to double down on that, that's something that we're really, I think, ahead of the curve is fair to say. We're a bit game changing in the sense that, I think most people now in the creative industry are using AI, but for a big proportion of that, it's, I'll ask ChatGPT. Oh, I need some copy. I'll ask ChatGPT. I need some code edits. Well, I'll ask ChatGPT. I think people are already using the AI, but they're not using it to its full potential because they're not using it in this kind of agentic way that's specific for their purpose. And this is something we've really invested in. We've really curated these agents. They're a mixture of models. So it's not like we're just taking whatever the ChatGPT API and throws out. We've really done a lot of hard work tailoring that, exactly like you said, so they can have this expert insight. We found that creative professionals are using AI, but they're only using it to a fraction of its potential. And we're actually saying, look, you just load in your project, tell the agents what you're looking for, and we'll take care of the rest. You don't need to spend 2 hours battling ChatGPT and then giving up and putting it into Gemini to then try and understand what's going on. We've built these 6 AI agents specifically to help you deliver better work faster by focusing on these individual things. But equally, you might not want a robot to give its feedback on design. You might not want to ask, the inner circle for its input on copy because you're focused on something else. So it's not like we're saying you have to have all of the agents all of the time. We're not saying that you have to take on board all of the input. It's really easy to hide the suggestions that you're not looking for. We're not trying to get the agents to take over. Just like a real team, they're there to collaborate. They're there to lean on and advise and strategize with you. And I think that's the way people are going to be using AI. We were talking earlier about how agentic AI is really where the innovation is. And at the moment, being frank about our roadmap, the AI can give you strategic input and advice and suggestions and tactical kind of input, as well as strategic overviews. We're like a year or two away from being able to tell the inner circle, okay, I've got Elementor installed. Take care of that element. This invitation landing page is for an event in Miami. What would it need to be? A 3-day event in, Barbados, focused on a slightly different audience. We're anticipating a world where you'll just be able to tell the inner circle to make those changes because they're already trained on your projects and the way you communicate and stuff like that. And they'll plug into the other tools. I think that's what we're building towards. And one thing I really want to get across is the AI agents that we've built called the inner circle, they're not tools. They're team members that have access to tools. So a good example of that is Index, which focuses on kind of SEO and performance to a limited extent. they can bring up a Lighthouse report automatically. And we're also, connecting with tools like Lovable and stuff like that, where you'll just be able to, in the near future, just click do it. And then the agents will then bring up the tools that are relevant for that job using MCP and protocols like that and just take care of it for you. And that comes back to our mission, which I've not really spoken about a lot today, but it's the idea of giving creative professionals unlimited scale. Right? As a marketing guy, AI helped me triple my output because I'm not starting from zero every time. I can generate a lot of content, and then my time is spent editing and curating and sharpening and fixing. And I think that's where the creative community is going to be deploying AI. We're seeing that at the moment with, coders and stuff like that. Vibe coding has come about because you can get AI to take care of the basic tasks. And then you as a human, you have that senior creative oversight. That's where we're moving to with AI. And with the inner circle, you're still the captain. The AI agents aren't in charge. You're the one in charge, but you can deploy them to focus on the issues that you don't know about, or you want an external perspective in, or you want outside input or stuff like that. That's what the inner circle can do. And by focusing on these tools and building for the future, we think it will give creative professionals this idea of unlimited scale, because you'll be able to do so much more quickly, but without compromising quality. That's really what we're building for.
Yeah. I mean, it all sounds fantastic right now, and the future looks bright given the extra stuff that you're going to, the roadmap that you laid out there. Appreciate you sharing that. If I'm somebody that's watching right now and it all sounds fantastic, where can I go to learn more, maybe see some demos, etc. about Atarim?
So we are on YouTube. That's somewhere we're investing quite a lot of time. So if you want to see what the inner circle can do, that's a great place to look. But really, we've built our website using the inner circle. You can see all about what each of the agents do, and you can kick off an inner circle kind of collaboration session straight from our website. So we are Atarim. If you go to atarim.io, atarim.io, right at the top, you'll see a review form. So you just put in your website, and then your AI agentic creative team are ready there to kind of help you hack away on it. So go to the Atarim website to find out more.
Awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for...
One thing to point out, we're currently being quite generous with AI credits as well. So if you were to sign up now when this goes live, we'll give you 200 AI credits to play around with and interact with the inner circle and get feedback as well. So check that out before we change.
It's a hell of a deal. Yeah. I'll put that down in the description. Ryan, appreciate you sitting down, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely, brother.
All right, thank you.